Welcome, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome to You Got a Friend in Me, a Randy Newman podcast. My name is Tristan Miller, and joining me, as often, is
Scott Interrante.
musician, podcaster, and bon vivant,
Oh, wow.
it boy.
I've never been a bon vivant before.
I don't know what that means.
I took 6 years of French in my life.
Zut alors.
I don't know what it means.
Okay, so bon
is
means
good.
good. V
I
means
think
the.
life. I think no, because it's vivant, right? So I think
yeah.
it's something about life and energy, spirit.
Yeah. It's used
I'm
like...
really talking out of my ass here, though.
I've used it because there's this great series from Justin McElroy on their YouTube called Taste of Luxury,
Right.
where he and his friend Dwight Slappy try to recreate luxurious experiences for no money. And that's one of the descriptions that I give is I'm a bon vivant.
Yeah.
Are you looking it up right now?
I am.
Please do.
Yeah. Like well living, good living, joyous life.
Oh, great.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I think that's you.
I'll take it.
So today we're talking about Little Criminals.
Little Criminals.
Yeah, by Randy Newman.
Which I gotta be honest, I'm sure other people feel this way. I picture little raccoons, right?
You know what? Subconsciously, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those
absolutely.
rascals.
Little rascals, but rascals like the book Rascal, not
Right.
little rascals.
Not
as
like
in-
the Little Rascals. Yeah.
No, not like Alfalfa and the gang.
Yeah. I gotta be honest. We don't have to get into it because we're already so off topic, to be honest. But
We're 2 minutes in, Scott. It's fine.
But I had a long saga of raccoons being in my attic in my childhood home, and the many trials and tribulations of trying to get them out. I mean, we're talking like makeshift chlorine bombs, traps, night vision cameras,
oh my gosh.
a makeshift gas chamber. It was a whole journey that I wasn't really involved in. It was like my dad and our redneck neighbor. And it was really something to behold. This was a multi-year process.
Oh my gosh. To just get rid of a couple of raccoons?
Yeah, because it was like a mom and some cubs.
I see.
And I got to be honest. So this was now we're in it. I don't know why, but this is where we are. And
Well, you thought of a raccoon, and then you're like, I had because here's the thing. Not a lot of people have had raccoons in their attic.
yeah.
So it's a unique experience.
The thing is, you get raccoons in your attic, and your first thought is, okay, let me call like an animal control thing, right?
Yeah.
And you call them, and they say, raccoons? No, we got way too many raccoons. Call an exterminator. They're like, just kill them. The people who were supposed to be protecting the animals, they told us to kill them. Exterminator would have been too expensive. Blah blah blah. This whole thing goes on. But this was, at the tail end of the old financial recession. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, first time I ever got a job.
Yeah, and my parents were getting divorced, and long story again, we were foreclosing on this house, so we essentially just left this house. But I got to be honest,
Did you leave the raccoons there?
I'm 100% positive actually that there was a raccoon who had gotten trapped because they were in the attic, and then one got himself stuck further down in the wall right behind the shower. So if you took a shower, you would just hear scritching and scratching. And also, I don't know if you know what kind of noises raccoons make, but they sound like birds. They like chirp and stuff.
Yeah.
So you would hear that behind the shower. But again, we all sort of knew that we were leaving this house, so we were like kind of just living with it. And I was in college, all this kind of stuff. And then, but yeah, we definitely, like at some point, that raccoon was stuck there. So that raccoon died in the walls. And by the time we left, like, I don't know. There was someone else had to deal with that. That was not our problem anymore. But Randy Newman, 1976.
No. The attitude of just like, fuck it, it's someone else's problem.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's so I think it's so beautiful how people, humanity can adapt in so many ways.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it's not good. And it's to the detriment of your health and well-being. And this would be one of the situations, because, like, the minute I heard, like, while I was showering, I'd be like, I'm burning down the house. Like, I would commit arson.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That's so funny and wild. And I'm sorry. All of those
Oh,
things.
no, it's okay. But, yeah, that summer, I had some friends over. We were watching. It was... when the new season of Arrested Development came out. Mm-hmm. So we all came over to my house to watch the whole season in one day, and we watched about half of it and then went out to lunch, and we came back. And as we come back, my redneck neighbor Reiner, his truck was in our driveway as we were walking back. And as we get closer, I see that he has like a plastic tube tied to his exhaust pipe, going to a trap, because I guess he had trapped one of the raccoons that had gotten stuck in the trap, and the trap was then covered by a garbage bag.
Yeah, and you're smoking
and he killed this raccoon via gas chamber, and my friends didn't know anything about the whole raccoon saga, so they come and there's like a makeshift gas chamber in my front yard. That was a weird thing to have to explain.
Oh, I bet. The closest thing I have is one time a bat got in.
Oh.
Like a little fruit bat. Pretty harmless.
Yeah.
But it was on the windowsill, and it was asleep because it was the daytime when we discovered it.
Right.
And we were trying to determine if it was dead or not, and my dad was like, no, it's breathing, so I have to get this fucking bat out of my house. So he opens the window, and he, like, pokes and prods it with stuff.
Right.
And he even took, like, a scissors to it. Like, going, scissors are fucking sharp.
Right.
Like, move, motherfucker. And basically what it came down to is he put on gloves and he scooped it up and he threw it out the window.
And just hope, hey, you can fly. This is your problem now.
Yeah. Which, this is the second time I talked about throwing animals on a podcast. Have you ever hypnotized a bird? Do you know what that means?
No.
So I'm realizing that I'm coming from such a different perspective of so many of my friends. But if you take a bird, you hold a bird, and you put its head between your pointer and your middle finger.
Right.
Turn it upside down. Okay. So like you're holding it in your palm of hand.
Right.
It will just go. It'll astral project. Little feet will go up. It'll disassociate, and you can like wrap like a little tag around it, which is generally what it's used for.
That's how they do. Right.
And then to stop it, you just turn it around and you throw it back up in the air.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, what? Huh? Okay.
Yeah, right.
Like it woke up from a bad dream. It's animals are strange. So Randy Newman.
It's Randy Newman, 1977, I believe.
The year Star Wars came out.
Wow.
Yeah. So think about that. While you're in September. So he was
Short People is actually about Yoda. Most people don't know that.
Star Wars, not Empire Strikes Back. It's about Jawas.
All right,
it's about Jawas.
I
Come on, man. We just had a whole 3-hour conversation about Star Wars.
I knew I was stretching.
Pop quiz. Beep 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 beep. When did what year did Return of the Jedi come out?
84, 85? I
believe it's 83.
83. All right.
It's 3 years between each one. It's Star Wars in 77, Empire in 80, then 83.
All right. Well,
I think. And if someone wants to correct me, fine. Don't. Just let me live my life. So we've gotten so off track, but 1977 in Randy September 23rd. So basically, see, I disagree with the wiki synopsis already, because it says Little Criminals is a 1977 album by Randy Newman. Like
that part.
That is correct.
No disagreements.
Yeah, objectively correct. Like most of Newman's work, the album eschews traditional pop music themes. I'll Be Home is the only love song on the album, in favor of musical storytelling, which often features quirky characters and cynical views. The first song off the album, Short People, became a hit single in its own right. The album itself peaked at number 9 of the US 200 Billboard chart, Newman's highest charting album to date.
Okay.
Here's my thing.
Right.
I see what they mean, but I feel like, and Newman has often talked about this, every attempt he's had at an album
right.
has tried to be popular. Like, he's not out here being quirky on purpose. He just can't help himself because it's his nature, right?
Right.
This is the most pop I've heard him do.
This is the most pop album we've gotten to so far, yeah.
Specifically, you know, and it's also the highest charting because it sounds like pop music.
Right.
Well, I'll get into it when we talk. I have specific examples that I'll bring up as we go along. But do you wanna get the elephant in the room?
We gotta start with Short People.
Yeah, my favorite song, the greatest song I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, just a little cross promo over here. I host a podcast called "This Is the Greatest Song I've Ever Heard in My Entire Life," where you can hear Tristan talking about short people and other things wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm considering starting a rival podcast, like a Spite podcast, like a Spite store from Curb.
Right.
Called "This Is the Worst Song I've Ever Heard in My Goddamn Life."
Honestly, extremely good idea.
Thank you. Are you familiar at all with Dave Barry's Book of Bad Songs by Dave Barry?
No.
It's a book by Dave Barry.
Right.
Where he lists all of the songs he hates.
Right.
Do you want to hazard a guess? He's a boomer, so we'll start with that. Would you want to hazard a guess what the number one is?
Yeah, you know, the common one that people say is "We Built This City in Rock and Roll."
A bad song.
A bad song.
It's MacArthur Park.
Oh, MacArthur Park that's a great pick.
Yeah, it's a comically bad song.
Yeah, but it's also great. But I get it. Yeah, you know, it's a good idea. It's just I prefer positivity in my life, Tristan.
I do as well, but I find a joy in going, oh, I hate this so much. Like, I literally just smiled when I said, like, I'll watch someone and go, oh man, I love that, because there's a certain level of joy to be found in hating something.
I think if gut feeling.
Yeah.
If I was on your podcast, "This is the worst song I've ever heard in my goddamn life," I would say "Rolling in the Deep" by Adele.
Ooh.
At me.
Yeah, I can understand why. Now I'm trying to think of what is the worst song I've ever heard in my goddamn life.
Or you know what? I'm sorry. Can I change it?
Yeah.
The entire discography of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Damn. Coming at 2005 me. Oh, yikes. I understand why. I understand. Ooh, what is the worst song? What is a song that I will turn off? That's the real, like, crystallization. If you start hearing the intro and you're like, fuck this, no. Whereas, like, there are songs that I hate so much I'll listen to them.
Right.
You know, because I get so amused by it. But, like, I'm trying to think of I don't listen to music very often. And when I do, it's music I like. I'm not often exposed to music I dislike.
Yeah, that's the world we live in, is that you don't really often hear stuff you don't want to hear. I think that's why "Rolling in the Deep" hits me so hard, because I had to hear it all the fucking time.
There's a song that my parents used to play. I want to say it's from the 70s. It might be ABBA, which generally I like.
Right.
And it's fine. I don't mind disco. But there's some, deep in the recesses of my mind, there's some hatred towards, like, not Dancing Queen, because that one slaps.
Yeah.
But, like,
great song.
I can't remember. I can't get it. I can't
It'll come.
It'll come or it won't. And I can't ask people to listen to me to try to remember something.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, I can't just be like, the whole show. Anyway, so Short People got No Reason to Live. My favorite song, maybe.
Right.
Can I tell you, in doing your podcast, and I learned how to play it on the piano.
Right.
I remembered vividly the song "Mexican Wine" by Fountains of Wayne.
Right.
Which might, if you had me on again, I would pick that, but then we would have talked about it twice.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But Short People is Randy Newman's, like, critical success, which is fascinating.
Yeah,
given
commercial success.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
what I mean. Yeah. Given the nature of the song.
Yeah. That
it is so snarky and rude and strange. It charted on, and I recently looked this up because I did a trivia. I host a trivia night at a bar here, and the question was, what song hit, what is it? Number 2 on the U.S. Number 2.
Right.
On the U.S. Hot 100 list. And it's Short People.
Short People. It's, you know, it's interesting because we should get into all the lyrics and stuff, but
Yes,
since we're
please.
talking about the success of it, I think musically it's just so damn catchy.
It's very
and
catchy.
The production on this whole album is great. Like you said, it really does sound like a 70s pop rock record. I mean, the production is great. The Eagles are on a lot of the album, including short people singing background harmonies and stuff. And it's just that piano, the like steady quarter note piano, and that drum groove and the conga rhythm in the background, and it gets stuck in your head. It's weird as the content of it. It's weird that it was such a hit, but musically, I get it. It's a bop.
Yeah, it's an absolute bop. And I think also part of its success is the controversy surrounding it, because a bunch of little people, like people with like dwarfism, which is not who he's talking about. To my knowledge, I think he has also defended. He's like, yeah, I think you misinterpreted my song, which is understandable. They protested his concerts, right? So I think the sort of mystique surrounding it, like added to the desirability of it. But yeah, I agree musically, having like learned it on the piano, having done a parody of it for your Christmas album this past year. It's a wonderful song, and also it's a funny sounding song from the beginning with that bop bop bop. Like there's something silly about it immediately. And to lead the album with this, I'm trying to see if did it get released as a single before?
I believe so.
Genre novelty rock, pop rock. Released as a single November, so after the album had come out.
Oh, okay. So, that's interesting.
So they re-released it for a single, which is great. Smart. But yeah, musically it's beautiful. There's the trumpets too. The
horns are great. Yeah,
it's so good. And also, it's maybe the most normal Randy's voice has sounded in a while.
Yeah,
like he just sounds like that's again. It's so weird. He oscillates between. I think it's this. He's probably drunk when he doesn't, because like in that first album, when Davey the Fat Boy starts, he's like caterwailing. But then you hear him on this, he gets like, it doesn't sound dissimilar to other rock and roll.
That's, what, I think you're right. I think that's maybe the biggest thing here is that on this whole album, really, he kind of is doing it straight vocally.
Yeah. He's not like hamming it up. And but in the music video for Short People, he sounds more like we know him now.
Right, because the music video is actually a different recording. It's like a live performance of it.
Exactly.
Right.
And I don't know, it's very strange. And it's so... Randy has talked so much about how he hates that this is his most popular song. Because he's like, what an albatross to have such a mean song. It couldn't have been like Little Criminals, which is also a bop. Or like
is like also like a very political thematic song. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it couldn't have been like, I don't know, like it couldn't have been Marie. It could have been like, it could have been like, he's like, I can't, this is the one that stuck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just take the W, guy. Like, just take the win, and it's okay. And it's the best. It's the greatest song I've ever heard in my entire life, Scott.
Right. Yeah.
And it makes me laugh. I have been in the depths of a depression, and I have gone to play it and immediately a smile's on my face because it sounds funny. And I generally I'll sing it. My neighbors hate me. I'll sing it.
Right.
I sing it normal. I don't do an impression of him often.
But you could.
I could, and I do sometimes. I've recently discovered that. Are you aware of the album American Idiot?
Oh, of course.
Are you aware of the final track on American Idiot, Homecoming / all these other ones?
Yeah.
You can use the chords to Short People to play that entire song, and you bet when I start doing musical comedy concert, I'm gonna go, this is Randy Newman playing Green Day, and I need you to know now. I'm gonna ask you, do you want me to play the whole song? And if, by round of applause, and if everyone's like, yeah, 9 minutes in, they're going to be like,
right. Why?
Jesus of suburbia. Why did we ask this person to do this? But anyway, it's a great song.
Great song. And in addition, it wasn't just, protested by people. There was the Wikipedia has a story about a representative in Maryland who introduced a bill to make it illegal to play the song on the radio. It did not get signed into law, but it was banned from a bunch of radio stations all over the country. Because and we talked about this on my podcast. Is like it really takes only like 5 seconds of thinking about this song to understand what's happening. And what's happening is very clearly that it is a way of pointing out how absurd and arbitrary racism and other bigotry is, right?
Yeah.
By talking about like, oh, short people, you don't have any reason to live and I hate you, right? Like that's the joke. And it's so clearly that's what the joke is. But these people like get as far as writing legislation and introducing it to the House of Representatives in Maryland, like, or whatever the body is called in Maryland state legislature. I'm not sure, but it didn't pass. But still, people are crazy.
Yeah,
people are dumb.
Yeah,
that's a theme of a lot of our conversations. Is that people are, all right, foolish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So here's the thing. Don't get me started about the way in which we decide whether or not language means one thing. Like people have been substituting wild for crazy. I'm like, they mean the exact same thing. You know that, right? That means, when someone was like, oh, that's a wild person, that person was mentally ill.
Right.
I don't want to get too in the weeds here because I don't want to get canceled for my Randy Newman podcast, which I never thought in a million years. I probably said this before that my problematic fave would be Randy Newman.
Yeah.
But yeah, people are foolish. They're silly. They're dumb. They're moronic. All of these synonyms.
Right.
What's also funny about that is there's a track called Baltimore. And you'd think they would be more upset about that one than short people because it's not a flattering picture he paints of Baltimore.
Right.
And also having been there recently, he's not wrong.
Well, yeah, I think that's now we're jumping around. Now we're talking about Baltimore, I guess.
Full Calvin ball right now.
I think the reason that song doesn't elicit that reaction is because it's more sincere. It is a unflattering portrait of the city of Baltimore, but in a way that I think is written to be empathetic about the situation. And it's been covered by a bunch of people. I was on the way over here, listened to a Nina Simone cover of Baltimore, which is great. And she does it as like a reggae beat to it and this lush strings, and it's really great. But I think it's interpreted, which is how I believe it's intended, to be a sincere, empathetic, unflattering portrait.
It's hard to live.
It's hard, yeah.
So he goes from you got no reason to live to it's hard to live.
It's hard to live, yeah.
And now here's my question. Are the short people off of the titular track the little criminals to whom he is referring?
I don't think so. I think the narrator is the little criminal. In the sense that, I don't think we should take it...
Because a song crime has been committed?
Yeah, because he's, a bigot. And
he's getting away with them.
And I think, this album features characters that are both little and big criminals. I mean, there's like presumably a child murderer in one of these songs. But I don't know that it's meant to be taken super literally, the title, but I would say that the narrator is the criminal here.
I would agree. I think so as well. Do you want to go through some of the lyrics for those of you who aren't familiar with the song Short People?
Yeah, if they're not, I'm not sure why they clicked on this. But
yeah. But it starts with short people got nobody, which is I love that so much because you're like, okay, no, he goes, short people got no reason.
Right.
And you're like, okay, where is he going with this? Off the bat, you're like, he's not finishing his sentence.
Got no reason for what?
To complain?
Got no reason,
yeah. Got no reason for cabinets. Like, got no reason for the season? I don't know. But it goes, no reason to live, which is the funniest thing. Like, when I heard that the first time it was like my mind, a third eye opened up, and I was like, oh, comedy can be so much more. And because it is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Right.
Because what does that mean, Scott? What does it mean that short people have not little reason to live.
Right.
No reason to live.
No reason to live, yeah.
Yeah, they got no reason to live. They got little hands and little eyes.
Right.
And they're walking around telling great big lies.
Yeah.
Which I think okay, so I don't want to get too in the weeds comedy structure wise, but at its core, comedy is two juxtaposed ideas, right? And so the idea of him going little hands, little eyes, but they're walking around telling great big lies is very good. Yeah. And I think needs to be on an HBO show, instead of Pretty Little Lies, Great Big Lies.
Great Big Lies.
Great Big Lies. And then it's like they got tiny noses, tiny little teeth. Is that the next part?
Yes.
Wear platform shoes on their
nasty little feet.
Which I love this concept of, like, we all know these short people are lying.
Well, yeah, because again, that's what it's sort of parodying is this, like, whatever race this bigoted person would have something against, like, the Jews have horns or whatever. Yeah. It's like that's what he's saying. You're basically like, short people, their nasty little feet.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's something that's really beautiful about this of, like, since it is so obscure and vague, you can apply whatever form of bigotry, xenophobia, racism, homophobia, whatever you want onto this. And in a way that's, I think, beautiful.
Yeah.
Of, like, he's giving you the opportunity to point at any sort of bigotry and go, this is what you sound like.
Exactly.
You idiots.
Yeah.
In a more palatable way than rednecks. Does that make sense?
Right. And then the bridge, we get a sort of different perspective. And this is the Eagles singing background harmonies. Yep. And they're saying, no, short people are just the same as you and I. And I think the line, a fool such as I, is interesting because it sort of breaks the fourth wall a little bit.
I can see what you're saying. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. I've always always taken the short people of just the same, and I even said this on the other podcast, is like people who are bigotry. It goes, these kinds of people are fine, but I don't want them in the home. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I've always, it's still the same narrator, and I think, he's kind of breaking the fourth wall, but the fool such as I is like, I think him being kind of like going, oh, we're all the same. Like, we're all the same, buddy. I just don't want to see any short people.
Everyone's a little bit racist.
Yeah. We're all fools such as I. It's turning into Trump. We're all fine.
Right.
But, like, but I could also see it being, breaking, like, Randy turning aside going, this guy's a moron. Right. I can also see it from your perspective.
Yeah. I think because you sort of had that point when we were talking about this on my podcast of, like, the sort of, like,
what is that podcast called again?
Oh, it's called "This Is the Greatest Song I've Ever Heard in My Entire Life." A very catchy and succinct title. Mm-hmm. But you were saying, like, that's something that racist people would say, like, mm-hmm. Oh, of course, yeah, I respect short people. I just don't want them hanging around me.
Mm-hmm. They just belong in Harlem and New York City. They just belong.
Right.
But yeah, for sure. And then the second line is in the harmony, just the same as you. All men are brothers until the day they die. It's a wonderful world, right. Which is great because it's also like, again, it's pointing out a very similar idea of like, yeah, we all live in harmony.
Right.
We're all in this together. We're all the same. But then it immediately goes back to short people got nobody to love. And so it's just completely undermining. It's pointing out the hypocrisy of racism, which I think is like, to do this in a 2.5 minute song, to put on blast the whole concept of almost neoliberalism as well, is such an intricate, beautiful piece of satire that I could, if we're not careful, spend 6 hours discussing. This could be the whole episode, and was a whole episode. Thank God you cut us off at like 20 minutes when we did yours. But then it goes, short people got nobody love. And this is where it gets silly. Because it goes, they have little baby hands. They hang so low. You got to pick them up just to say hello. Absurd. But
yeah, the car line is...
Oh, choice. But the picking them up to say hello kind of also reminds me of like when white people want to touch black people's hair.
Right.
It's like that same similar sort of action as well. It's so demeaning.
Right.
And then they got tiny little cars that go beep, beep, beep. And this is... This is the moment where Randy gives us a little taste of what he actually sounds like.
Right.
Vocally. Because he goes beep, beep, beep.
Right.
And then he goes tiny little voices that go peep, peep, peep. And just phonetically, beep and peep.
Right.
Very funny words.
Yeah.
They got those plosives and that E sound very great.
I'm glad you have a pop filter on your mic. I can't. I don't have one over here. I can't say that line.
Yeah. That's our word.
Yeah, exactly. Short people can say peep, peep, peep.
Yeah,
I as a average sized person,
what I was gonna say, what size are you? What height are you?
I guess I'm like 5'10" and a half ish.
That tracks. Yeah. So you're about average height. I am below average height and therefore can say peep, peep, peep.
Yeah.
I'm
just
like
barely though.
But barely. Yeah. I'm not that short. If I wear boots,
you wear the platform
from shoes on my nasty little feet. Damn, you got me.
Yeah.
It's me and Robert Downey Jr. That's the other thing is like he's not wrong.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. is constantly in lifts.
Oh yeah, I mean Tom Cruise too.
Yeah. Short people.
Yeah. Although, look, I love Tom Cruise.
I know you do.
We don't have to get into it.
I haven't seen enough of his stuff to like or hate him. I like that he has a death wish and people are allowing him to live that out.
Yeah, that's really what I like. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then it ends with don't want no short people.
Right.
Don't want no short people. Don't want no short people around here. And then it fades out with the congas and the horns.
Yeah, so good.
Yep, it's so good. And so my experience, I think I mentioned this on the podcast we did. The first experience I had listening to the song was on Pump Up the Jam.
Right.
Which the premises of the show is they take a song, they analyze it, much as we have. They go line by line. And then they try to make a better version of it. And you know how I was like, this is the greatest song I've ever heard.
Right.
Like, I'm like, well, there's no way they can make... And Demi, who is one of the hosts, Demi and Miel, and Demi kind of agrees. He's like, for what this is, it's perfect.
Right.
So what they did is they asked a friend to read it dramatically like Al Pacino. And he was like, oh, short people got nobody. Short people got nobody to love. You know, it's so good. Yeah. Highly recommend that episode.
That's great.
But then the second time I heard it was the piano book version. And it's him just at the piano. And hearing him reconstruct the orchestration for just a piano, because he does do that bump, bump, ba-da-da, bump, 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 bump. And it's so fun. And he does, it's one of those moments of like, oh, he's been playing this song since 1977.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You can hear how he's got it down. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's also what he sounds like now. So it adds to the like the insanity of it all. Yeah. So that's Short People. The first track, much like in Good Old Boys, he gets the banger right. It was like, this is what this is about. Yeah. Kind of. And that's, I want to talk to you more about like this structurally.
The album, I guess we could just talk about it now. I think this is maybe the least focused album thematically that we've talked about so far.
I agree.
Because there are, satire songs like that. There are the two that we're about to talk about, which are very class conscious and sort of talking about, lower class struggles. And then there are these weird, like, European songs, and it's a little all over the place.
They're all kind of related, but also not. Yeah, it's like I was trying to I've listened to this album like 4 or 5 times in preparation for this episode, and I was like, what is the connective tissue? And Short People seems to be really just the one that's like, why is this on this album?
Right.
Which, the answer was so he got a #1 single.
Right. Well, number 2 single.
Number 2, I'm sorry. But you could also tell that he put a lot of stuff in Little Criminals and titled it Little Criminals because he thought that was the one that was going to pop off.
Yeah, I will say, I think that musically, this is very consistent.
Oh, yes.
You know, it feels more like, okay, I've got a band in the same way that, I mean, Good Old Boys has a kind of consistent country sound, and but it still has a little bit more experimentation. This is like a straightforward, like, we're a 70s pop rock group. I've got the Eagles playing and singing with me, and
So
we're like
cool.
a band, and we're gonna play these songs. It's all got the piano. There's got that conga appears throughout a bunch of the songs, which gives it that sort of characteristic percussion sound. So there's like musically, it sort of all hangs together, but thematically, yeah. I mean, we've already spent a lot of time on Short People, so I don't know that we need to.
I don't think we need
dig into every single one. But these two songs we can talk about as a pair. You Can't Fool the Fat Man and Little Criminals are both the sort of, You Can't Fool the Fat Man is a sort of this guy is clearly trying to get a loan, and for whatever reason, because he's poor, he doesn't have a good credit score or whatever the case is, right? And so like the fat man standing in as like the man, the banker, is like, no, you're just trying to trick me. You're trying to grift. You're trying to be sneaky. I'm not going to approve you for this loan or this credit card or whatever it is. They leave it a little vague. But I think it's really about the sort of like structural poverty that like once you're there, you can't break out of it, right? Because you can't get a loan. You can't get to do whatever you're trying to do or whatever.
Absolutely. I agree thematically. That is what it is about. I interpret the imagery a little bit differently.
Okay.
In as much as like two things. One, I heard it, the IRS recently referred to as the fat man.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So it could be a government thing.
Right.
But the way it starts out is sitting with the fat man trying to get a loan, so that's objective. Talking about the horses and women we've known. So already they're too chummy.
Right.
And then he says, spitting on the sidewalk, squinting into the sun, greeting all the people, smiling at everyone. So in my mind, and I've lived in like a couple of neighborhoods like this, where you see like two older people that are like, clearly one of them has some money that they give out, shall we say, regularly. He does offer loans, but they're like sitting at a cafe smoking and just talking, and it seems less formal than him going to a bank. Right. Which amplifies your point of like it's about how you're stuck in that certain income level.
Right.
But he's basically like, he goes, I need a loan. And the saddest thing, he's like either making something up to try and get the money, or this is true, which is sadder, which he goes, my brother's in the armed forces. My sister is in jail. Won't you give me $50, just $50, so I can pay her bail? Right. That's it. $50, that's it. Right. And this guy goes, no,
you're trying to,
You can't fool me.
Right.
You can't fool me. And he's like, and that's the saddest thing is it goes, you're just a 2-bit grifter, and that's all you'll ever be. Right. So yeah, it's about systemic poverty and how it's awful.
And so in the same way, the title song Little Criminals is this, it's very sad actually, because so the sort of main character is trying to go, be part of this bank robbery job, basically, right? These guys he knows who are these petty criminals, these little criminals, and they're saying
kids in a trench coat,
right? But they're saying like, no man, like you're strung out, you're on drugs, like I can't associate with you because this is gonna be the job that gets us out of here, and you're gonna hold us down, you're gonna keep us back. But of course, everyone knows that that's not true, right? That they picked out this gas station to rob or whatever, and they're probably gonna fail. Yeah. Or get arrested or get shot or whatever, right? They're no better than the other guy. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're both stuck in this system.
Yeah. I kind of want to go through some of the lyrics.
Please.
Because they're very, very good, and a few of them make me laugh. Yeah. But the way he starts it off is so hostile. He goes, what you want to come back here for? So this person has shown up more than once asking to be in this. Thought you were with your uptown friend. So already this guy's like, I'm sick of your shit.
Right.
I don't want you. I thought you had other friends than us. So that kind of almost infers that this guy was part of the gang.
Right, exactly.
Went away and then came back. We don't need none of your junkie business. So he's either doing heroin or selling heroin.
Right.
You're going to screw us up again.
Again.
Right.
Yeah.
Again. I kind of imagine this as an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Where Charlie's just like, I want to be part of it. I want to be part of it. Get your blackjack off my table. Get your coat out of my rack. That is such a good insult that I want to use it in real life. Get your coat out of my rack. I don't even want you to stay long enough to talk to me.
Right.
So good. Then funniest thing, the first time I heard it, is like, we don't need you around here, jerk off.
Right.
Have never heard jerk off in a song before.
Yeah.
Great. Chuck, I want you off my back. Because we've almost made it. And then that's repeated.
Right. Because they think that they've almost made it, that they're getting out. But they're not.
They're not.
Clearly.
Musically, this song, he does, at one point, Randy does that, like, self-harmonizing that's very common in 70s. It sounds like the Steve Miller Band.
Yeah.
It's like, and I was like, in this moment, like, oh, he could have been, like, I had this moment kind of like, I had a similar thing. If Star Wars hadn't been popular, George Lucas would have continued to be, like, a certain kind of filmmaker.
Right.
When he already was with TXX and American Graffiti.
Right.
And I had this moment of, like, oh, imagine if this one had popped off. Then Randy Newman would have been like, this is what he would have done for the rest of his life.
Right.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I just had a moment of, like, where I saw a different reality.
Yeah.
But yeah, then I'm glad you pointed out gas station, because I was like, what station? Because I thought radio station.
Oh,
or
yeah, I
TV
guess
station.
it could be anything. I assumed gas station.
You're probably right.
Right.
But basically, also this line, got a gun from Uncle Freddie.
Right.
Sad. They can't even find their own firearms.
Right. Well, yeah, but again, it's like all these little references to things in the past, right? Uncle Freddie means this is a 2-generation problem, right?
Yes.
They say you're not going to screw it up again, meaning this isn't the first time that they've fucked something up. You know, it's like all these subtle references to like this cycle that they're in.
Yeah. It's sad, but
We've almost made it to the top. But
almost made it to the top, but not quite.
And then of course there's a sort of implicit connection we can make to It's Lonely at the top. Even if they did get out and make it to the top, then what?
You know what? That's a great point.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I agree. Then what?
Then what?
Then what?
Well, Then What on the album is Texas Girl. Do you love that that segue?
Yeah, it was perfect. Texas
Girl at the funeral for her father. I don't know if you have anything to say about this, because I think it's just like a nice sad song about an old man who died.
Okay. I have some thoughts about this one, actually.
Okay.
I can't tell if it's sincere.
I think it might be.
Because in the refrain, it just says, sing a sad song for a good man. Sing a sad song for me. Sing a sad song for the sailor. 1,000 miles to sea. Very beautiful, wistful. But for him to go, I'm singing you this sad song.
Right.
It seems a little tongue-in-cheek, but it also is very beautiful and very sincere.
I wonder what you think about this. If we think about a song like Old Man from Sail Away, which is about a son on his father's deathbed, basically telling him, okay, old man, you're dying, and you know what? No one fucking liked you. Good riddance, right?
Yeah.
And then you compare that to this, which is about a daughter singing to her father on his deathbed. And maybe it's about that implicit difference of where she actually feels the same way, but she is not going to say it in the same way. She's just saying, oh, sing a sad song. But maybe the passive aggressive implication is there, and it's just about the sort of differences of the way that the son would react versus the daughter. I don't know if that's reading too much into it, but
yeah, that's certainly an interesting series of thoughts,
right?
You know, which is the point of discussing anything.
Yeah.
And I'll say this as well with it is like it's the first song we get with this motif about water
right
throughout the whole thing. It's weird because also the order in which these are placed are strange. In as much as like there's this song and then it goes to Jolly Coppers on Parade, which seems similarly like it seems like this album is about Baltimore.
Right.
But this one is also about Baltimore because, you know, like the fishing and all of this. And you know,
but it says Texas girl, you know.
But maybe her dad died in Baltimore.
Right.
But
because he was a sailor.
He was a sailor on the ocean deep and wide.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a weird one, but it does have this beautiful motif. It's a beautiful song.
Beautiful song.
But I did, when I started playing, I was like, oh, here we go. Here's another Marie. I did go, here we go. Because the strings start playing, and I'm like, okay, I know exactly what you're doing. And it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
By the way, I've come around on Marie.
That's good.
Like, I think outside of the context, I
get what you were saying about it, but it's just such a beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song, and having thought about what you said about it, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's hard talking about how much you like someone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah. Hey, Tristan.
Oh, no. Can I tell you? Knew it was going to happen, and I was like...
Yeah. So I just want to say one thing about Jolly Coppers on Parade before we talk about it seriously, which is that when I'm not paying attention, even when I am paying attention, I just hear it as Johnny Cochran's on Parade, which doesn't make any sense.
Not at all.
This is way before the OJ trial. But I don't know. That's just what I hear.
That's funny.
But that's not what it's about. It's about cops.
It's about cops. And I bet if we were to bring up this song now on Twitter, there'd be discourse about it. But it's also like, I would love to hear your interpretation of it. But since it's a song sort of glorifying police and how beautiful they look, and it's from the perspective of a child who like goes, I want to be that someday, and it's kind of a similar reflection of like, well, they're no better than the little like it's the same thing,
right,
but in reverse, because we all know the pigs suck, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, and I want to find this quote because I think what's interesting about the song is that it is presented, as you say, it's presented fairly straightforward and like from a child's eyes. It's that's what I want to be when I grow up. But I think it's clearly the perspective of the songwriter is about how ridiculous it is the way we revere cops, right? And the way it's like, oh wow, look at that ocean of blue and their fancy black and white cars, and they're floating down the street, and wow,
they're doing tricks for kids.
Yeah, look at how great they are at keeping law and order, right? But it's like I think it's making fun of that, and he even has this quote where he's sort of talking about the album, and he says there's one called Jolly Coppers on Parade, which isn't an absolutely anti-police song. So he's sort of acknowledging that like it is an anti-police song, and I think he's kind of saying like it is and it isn't. I think it's like you said, it's sort of an honest perspective of a child or whatever. But he says maybe it's even a fascist song because that is sort of what it is. It's like the perspective of the narrator, and maybe the narrator is a child, but the perspective is like, wow, I love the state police force. You know, I love the control we're under. I love how they drive around and how they keep the order.
I love the way you read that was so good, because I can see him like in the moment going, well, actually, now that I think about it for a second, that's so good. And yeah, I took it as a very much an anti-police song.
Yeah.
Because he clearly is aware, like, when I was talking to Tara about It's a Jungle Out There, when when police get mentioned in that as well, of like, I think Randy's aware enough of the so-so situation that he doesn't trust the cops, you know?
Right. No, I think it's that part is very definitely satirical or sarcastic.
I don't think anyone who's done as much cocaine as he could have, like, and he's alluded to it a fair amount.
Right.
He's definitely done some kind of drug. It was the 70s, right?
Right.
So, like, yeah, there's no way he could trust the cops.
Right.
And I think I do like how it's like, well, it's not an anti-cop song, but it is a pro-fascism.
Right.
Like, that's such an interesting. That's like walking out of. You know what? That's like walking out of Rogue One and going, oh, that Darth Vader scene is so cool. I love it. I love it so much. It's like, you missed the point.
Here's the thing, though.
It cool. Fucking rips. It's so, but it doesn't make sense when they're like, we can't get.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he? It's too samurai, I guess, in episode 4, but like he's not doing flips and shit. It's whatever. Anyway, next song.
Yeah.
But I like the refrain of Jolly Coppers on Parade. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun song, and I immediately clopped it. Ew.
Right.
Clocked it of like being snarky about it, which I think is fun.
Yeah.
Now,
so in Germany before the war, I had alluded to. So this song is seemingly about, it's not really explicit in the lyrics of the song, but it seems to be about like a child predator or child serial killer or something. And it's interesting on Genius, they talk about it as potentially being a reference to a Fritz Lang film about where Peter Lorre plays a serial child killer named Hans Burkett. Or it's possible that it's about an actual serial killer in Germany who is killing children, who is nicknamed the Dusseldorf Ripper. Mm-hmm. This man named Peter Kirsten, who was executed in 1931 for killing a bunch of kids. It's not super explicit in the lyrics, though. It's just sort of, if you were to just read the lyrics, it might be about a strange man who is staring at children. Except the last line does say, my little girl, golden girl and I, and she lies very still, which sounds like she's dead, but I think what's interesting about this song that I'm honestly a little confused at how we should take it is the verses are in third person, right? In Germany before the war, there was a man, all this sort of stuff. He would cross down the park at the Rhine. He would sit there by the shore. But then in the chorus, it switches to first person, and it's I'm looking at the river, I'm looking at the sea. So are we switching characters of who's singing, Because then again, in that second verse, he says, a little girl has lost her way, golden eyes and golden hair and eyes are gray, and reflected in his glasses as he watches her. Again, we're sort of like shifting perspective here. So I'm not sure. I guess it just shifts who's singing.
Yeah. Can I tell you?
Yeah.
Did not think about this character killing a child at all.
Right.
Not on my radar. My interpretation of this was it's a song about an immigrant. And about how, before the war and before I had to move to America, I owned this store, and then all this tragedy happened during the war, and kids were dying.
Right.
Or it's a metaphor for, like, how, I don't know, like, how people lose their way, and it's almost a nostalgic song is how I interpreted it. That's very interesting about the killing thing, because that had never once crossed my mind.
I think it is, in this second verse, it's talking about like he's watching her, it's not like
yeah.
So I don't know. I could definitely see it. I like the way. I mean, it's much nicer the way you're talking about it, because she could still be a dead child, and it's not because he killed her. It's because there was, bad things happening or whatever.
And I think I thought about it a little bit more, and I think I can. The girl is Germany.
Well, the girl could be Germany.
That's how I interpreted it. It's like before the war, and then there was this bright-eyed, all this potential because they had just started coming back from getting their ass kicked in World War II.
Right.
Sorry, in World War I, rather. And then it's right before World War II because of, the timeline.
Right.
And so there's, Bright-Eyed Child represents, Germany coming back, and then ultimately, what was it all for?
Right.
Sort of thing. But lyrically, similarly to Mexican Wine.
Okay.
That first line, it rhymes perfectly with itself because it's in Germany before the war. There was a man who owned a store in 1934 in Dusseldorf.
Right.
He doesn't put on
right.
that. And every night at I guess it's not a triplet. Is that those three lines that all rhyme?
Yeah. And then 509 to the Rhine,
and then
by the shore to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's beautifully composed. He's such a good writer.
Oh yeah, and musically too, it's a very haunting song, and I really particularly love in the verses, it does this because it's in this very minor, drab, very dreary.
Well, it's about a little girl.
It's and and it's sort of he keeps this pedal right. It's like this the low bass note stays the same almost throughout the whole song. And it's got this minor chord, but then in the beginning of that second verse, he switches to that same chord, but a major chord. And he's singing a little flat because he's singing that third, which should be the major note, but he's singing a little flat. Every time he hits it, it's a little flat. And then the next chord, it's the same chord, but minor. And it's, I don't know, it's just, it's beautiful. It's sad.
And I really love the chorus.
Yeah.
Because there's this idea of, again, like, it almost feels nostalgic to me of, like, being presented with something.
Right.
But you're thinking...
I'm sitting by the river, but I'm thinking of the sea.
Yeah, of, like, this is what I have, but what I want is so much bigger.
Right.
And, again, for me, it kind of comes from... linked, in my mind, to immigrants of, like, when you come across the country...
Yeah.
You're often presented with a river, but what you were promised was a sea.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful song.
But maybe that's what led him to kill children.
I guess, yeah. Who's to say? It's a song, two things. One, if Short People wasn't on this album, this would be my favorite.
Okay, fair.
This is a beautiful song, and that I almost... No, I think I did cry when I first heard it. It's so gorgeous. It not like weeping, but like I rolled a tear.
Right.
And then two things. This is the second of the two things. I was talking to my friend Hunter on a live stream / podcast I do called Focus Testing, which is about movies, and you improvise a movie at the end of it. And after the call, we were talking about the difference between art and content, because there's a lot of confusion these days. There's content and media, and then there's art.
This is content.
This is absolutely content. Yes, this is what's known as new media, and then I recently heard the term legacy media, meaning like fucking books, and I'm like, no, that's just
and like print newspapers,
and like films as opposed to Tic Tacs. Like, I'm like, no, that's just stuff. This is garbage. No, but the difference between content and art, I think, is whether or not there needs to be any sort of interpretation of it, which was an idea that Hunter first proffered. And so, like, something like all of Randy's stuff is very artful by that definition of, like, you have to kind of, I mean, Short People's a little bit more, like, on the nose, but this, you have to, we just both came up with two completely different interpretations of the song, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
But this is content because we're just talking about something. Like, there's no way, unless I, like, say something vague, like, oh, this one, it could be anything you wanted it to be. Like, but there's no...
Right.
You know. Anyway, so the next one is the one I thought was the one before.
Right.
Which is Sigmund Freud's impersonation of Albert Einstein in America.
I love this.
Okay,
I think it's...
Go off.
I think it's so silly.
Yes.
It's this sort of, I guess it's like an anti-American song, right? Because it's from the perspective of Sigmund Freud, this great influential mind, looking at someone who he considered a peer, this other brilliant mind, Albert Einstein, fellow German Austrian man who decides to leave Europe and go to America and teach at a university and become a celebrity. And he's like, oh, this fucking jerk, you know? And so he's like, his interpretation of what America is like, and Albert Einstein must be saying, oh, I'm so happy to be in the land of the brave and the free, and all this kind of I don't know, I just think it's funny. It's like this bitter European, but of course it's an American writing a bitter European's interpretation of America, you know?
Yeah, it's almost as if he's created a character to get away with things he wants to say about America himself, but does not want to be criticized for.
Right.
You know, that's often how satire is presented, right?
Right.
But I like this song too. I can't remember No, I do really like this song. It is snarky. It's almost It's certainly snarkier than Short People. It's almost more snarky than like Political Science.
Right.
But my favorite part, Scott, about it is it ends with, and may all your Christmases be white.
It's so good.
I lost my goddamn mind when I first heard that.
It's incredible.
Because it's like, yeah, that is what America is. And it feels like the musical version of going, ooh, look at me. It's so good.
Now, I want to point out there are some lines that do, similar to Rednecks, where there are some lines that really just bite across the bow, right? Yeah. And sort of break through the caricature, right? So we get this, and again, it's from the perspective of this quote unquote bitter European intellectual, but this chorus where he says, America, America, oh God, shed his grace on thee, right? But then talks about like, you have whipped the Filipino and now you rule the Western Sea. Like really talking about like, oh, you think you're so enlightened and progressive in this beacon of freedom and democracy, but like you guys are fucking imperialists too. Mm-hmm. And it goes on to this sort of, I don't know, this third verse is troubling to me. Americans dream of gypsies I have found.
Mm-hmm. Which is now apparently a word that
yes
is less than favorable to use, shall we
yes
say.
But I think that's also sort of what's happening, right? It's like, okay, now we're in multiple layers. It's like Freud talking about Americans talking about Europeans or whatever. Saying like essentially like, oh, you think that we are this crazy country of gypsies and whatever
and thieves
little
criminals,
right? The line that I find upsetting is African appendages that almost reach the ground, and little boys playing baseball in the rain. This sort of like, I'm not sure what Freud is doing here. Of course, it's very Freudian to talk about dicks. But I don't know. I think he just, the what's happening is, Freud is this version of Freud. Randy doing Freud, doing Einstein.
Yeah.
Doing America. There's a lot of layers going on, and I'm not exactly sure where everything lands, but
it's the inception of songs.
Yeah, but may all your Christmases be white.
Yes, that last chorus, it goes, America, America, step out into the light. You're the best dream man has ever dreamed, and may all your Christmases be white.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot going on with just that, because it's like asking America, when, you say step into the light, people probably go, oh, it's your time to shine. But no, really, show us what you're really about.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it's, oh, you're the best dream that anyone could. Right. And then the may all your Christmases be white also has the racial inference,
right?
Which I think is good. And then also the way he says America, America is almost America.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
America. Yeah. And it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And it's again, now I kind of agree with the beginning of the Wikipedia commercial.
Right.
Commercial? Oh my God. What time is it? Am I alive? The Wikipedia summary of like, yeah, I mean, it's not pop, but like, because of this. If this song was, but it sounds more pop. It was mostly my point.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So Baltimore, we already talked about a little bit.
But I do want to go
please.
into it a little bit more. But I want to hear what you have to say first.
No, I don't think I have anything else to say to it. So
okay. Well, it starts off with beat up little seagull on a marble stair trying to find the ocean, looking everywhere. So again, we get this metaphor of people long for the sea.
Right. And just great imagery too.
Oh, for sure. And it also is, having been to Baltimore recently for a tour.
Right.
Not incorrect, because the ocean is right there.
Right.
And so this situation could easily happen, but it also is like a metaphor, right? Of like the people there are like just trying to find something that works.
Right.
And the like waiting for a train, drunk lying on the sidewalk, sleeping in the rain. Like, it's all this very evocative imagery of like, it's like literally like, man, it's hard just to live. Like, there's so much going on that's bad in this city.
Right.
And then also, my favorite thing is get my sister Sandy, my little brother Ray, buy a big old wagon, haul us all away. Live out in the country where the mountain's high, never coming back here to the day I die.
Yeah.
So this motherfucker wants to get out of Baltimore and live up, away from all of this city living.
Yeah, but like you were saying, it ties into, Fat Man, and it ties into Little Criminals, where it's like, this is talking about the systemic poverty, this cycle of poverty, and they just want to get out.
Yeah,
they just want to get out to the mountains.
And can I tell you, the chorus of like, oh, Baltimore, man, it's hard just to live. Like, I'm half singing it because I don't want to commit to singing on mic. It's so good. It sounds like a pop song.
Right.
And it's, again, I heard it first on the piano book on my way to Baltimore.
Classic.
And,
that's great.
And then I heard this version of it, and I was like, oh, there's a lot. The orchestration is really good, is the way I'll put it. Sorry, I'm bringing up the lyrics for the next one.
Yeah, so I'll Be Home. This one is interesting because this is an older song of his that it appears on the Nielsen Sings Newman album back in 1970. So it had been floating around for a while, which I think makes sense because it feels similar to like a 12 Songs or that era where it's this nice little character piece that on its surface, I mean, that Wikipedia summary you said described this as the only love song, and I don't interpret it that way at all.
Nor do I. Also, the Texas girl at a that's a love song.
Right.
That's a ballad.
So this is, on its surface, it's someone saying, I'll be home, I'll be there for you when you have troubled nights or you're feeling down and you need some sympathy. I'll be there. But it's really more stalker than love, right? And it's also vaguely threatening because he says, when there's no one else around to keep you company, remember, you could always count on me. It feels very like, are you telling me I don't have anyone else? Like, is that a threat?
Yeah. Can I tell you? My interpretation is completely different.
Wow.
This is about when you're stuck in systemic poverty, continuing to volunteer to be in it. To go, yes, I know it's bad, but I'm going to be home. Through thick and thin, this is my community.
Right.
These are my people. And I'll be here.
Right.
Which, maybe I'm just trying to thread this together in a way.
I mean, it makes sense in that context.
Because I've always, as we've talked about before, I desperately try to view these as almost pseudo-concept albums because most of them are. And so for me to try and, because this seems so away from the rest of the music, and it, to what you said, it's an older song of his. Right. So he didn't write it for the album. I don't know. But that's how I kind of gravitated towards it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense either way. I think, like a lot of those songs on 12 Songs and some of the earlier albums, it's very it's very vague, which allows it to have a lot of these interpretations. On its surface, it's really, if you just look at the lyrics and you just take them face value, it's extremely straightforward. Like, I'll be here whenever you need.
Yep.
And that's all it says. But that leaves a lot of room for, like, well, who are you and who are they and why,
Yeah. And why are you so committed to this person?
Right.
Yeah. It almost feels like, I think, I agree. And like, I stick by my, like, it feels like someone saying, I'll be home whenever you need me. I know you're not doing as well because you're stuck in this situation.
Right.
Conversely, isn't Rider in the Rain the next?
Yeah.
And then he says, fuck you, I'm out of here. He says immediately, I'll be home. And then immediately, see you later, chumps.
Right.
Like, which is, I'm so happy about it. And then also, it's like such a snarky faux Western. It even has that bum-ba-da.
Oh, yeah. It's just an Eagles song.
Oh, that's fair.
And they're on it. I mean, it's Desperado, but...
But it also, like, it seems meaner, though. It seems like, oh, yeah, it's almost related to the Sigmund Freud thing of, like, this is a version of America that we have in our mind that doesn't actually exist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's more to say about it than that. It's just, like, a catchy Western pop song. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's the... One chunk I wanted to highlight is, my mother's in St. Louis and my bride's in Tennessee, so I'm going to Arizona. So fuck those two people.
Yes.
With a banjo on my knee, bringing up obviously that old folk
Stephen
song.
Foster, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just so aware of what America is. There's a great documentary that I probably mentioned before in the program. See, that's what it is not content. It's a program. It's a program. Yes. Gosh, I you know what one of my dreams was as a kid was working for the local PBS station.
Oh, yeah.
And then I recently watched UHS for the first time.
God,
I was
so
like,
bad.
That is, I want that so
We
bad.
used to, my brother and his friends and I had a public access sketch comedy TV show. They did for like over a year. Every week we were making like a 25 to 30 minute sketch comedy show.
I wish,
I don't know how or why we did that.
I wish I had that opportunity. I also, like, whenever I would watch, like, I was homeschooled, so every time I would see, like, a show where the person got to work for the school newspaper or for the do the PA announcements over the radio over in a college, I was always like, oh, I want that so bad. I desperately wanted to work in radio.
You should have started a school newspaper for you and your siblings.
Can I tell you? I did. I tried to get it off the ground.
Yeah.
And then we argued about it.
Right.
And then my mom was like, enough. Because I was like, I want a humor column. And they're like, no one wants that. No one wants to hear your
No one who? It's just us.
I know. And this is why I am the way I am. It's hard when you have a bullying problem when you're homeschooled. I mean, it's just, oof, boy. But yeah, so that's basically Rider in the Rain. But like, I desperately wanted to work, like, because like I grew up with what are their names? Strange Brew. What are the Bob and Doug McKenzie?
Oh yeah,
like stuff like that. And I always wanted to work at a public access station. There's one in Brooklyn where you can like apply to like pitch shows to.
Right.
Where like Chris Gethard started.
Oh yeah.
And I want to know if there's one for Queens because I would tear that
I'm sure.
I would tear that up.
Yeah.
Ugh. I pitched one of my other podcasts, Positive and Negative, so many times to that fucking Brooklyn station, and they just did not want it because I didn't know about Chris Gethard's thing at the time. So I'm sure they were looked at it as like, we already did this with another person.
Right.
Anyway, next song is Kathleen, Catholicism Made Easier. A great title.
It's such a good title, yeah.
Kathleen. Catholicism. Okay. You wanted to talk about...
Well, yeah, so I think that this is a very funny one. It's, this guy, I'm not sure I'm not sure exactly what his motives are. I don't know if he's just trying to like sleep with this girl who is like this Catholic virgin, so he's promising to marry her or something, but he definitely thinks she's an idiot, and maybe she is. I don't know, but I love, he says, he starts off, he's talking about, oh, we can get married. There's this courtyard down here in Chicago, and it's by the river where nobody goes, which everyone goes. The river is Chicago. That is, so everyone's there.
Having recently been to Chicago for the first time, and having never thought about Chicago up until really being there, I flew over, and I was like, is there a river by Chicago?
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm like, oh, of course there is. Of course, I've seen The Fugitive. Of course there's a river,
Yeah.
And I was just like, but I was flying over like, damn, that thing's big.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah. But so, he says, we can go get married down here in the courtyard by this old Spanish priest that no one knows. And he'll say, and then he starts singing in this other language, which is not Spanish, it's Italian. And it's from this song. It's from this like a 50s Italian language song called Volare. I'm Italian, but I don't speak Italian, and I'm sorry, so I'm not going to say any of these words. But he essentially
let me try it.
Oh, please.
Is that good?
That must be offensive. I'm pretty sure.
I think the Italians can take the hit.
Yeah.
Speaking as an Irish American person, yeah. I think.
Yeah, so he says a few lines of Italian and then says, that means you love him and he loves you. And I wanted to double check this because I was pretty sure, but that is absolutely not what it means. Which is very funny because, again, I guess he thinks this woman is an idiot. And then he sings, oh, Kathleen, Kathleen, you're the best in the world. I've always been crazy about Irish girls.
He's so funny.
I think he's just trying to sleep with her.
Oh, for sure. It almost feels like a continuation of the previous song where this guy has been like, my bride is in Tennessee. I'm
right.
later, but it does move to Chicago.
Right.
So it can't be the same guy. But thematically, it feels like also it might be the same guy from The Fat Man. Because he's this 2-bit huckster.
Right.
That's trying to sleep with this lady. And like, I think there's something so interesting that's definitely dissipated recently of like going, oh, I like such and such ethnicity people, because people find that deeply offensive, which is understandable. The line, I've always been crazy about Irish girls, is very good.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It's also like from the title, one might assume that's like, oh, this is how you get with a Catholic girl. Like, this is like someone who's like, hey, like an older brother takes their younger brother aside. It's like, hey, you ever want to get with a Catholic girl? This is what you say.
Right, exactly.
This is what you say.
Right.
It's easy as hell.
You just got to promise to marry him. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, and it's just got to be by a priest.
Yeah.
And admittedly, vis-a-vis the Italian thing, maybe the priest is Italian, but he's an old Spanish priest, so maybe he's doing it in Latin, and it's so ignorant, and this guy's clearly stupid. So okay, those are the two interpretations. Often a joke will be like Groucho Marx is very knowing, right? When he says something funny, he knows it's funny, right?
Right.
Debatable whether or not that's funny. I don't want to get into it. But then there's also the way to play it straight, like Betty White would.
Right.
So sweet, so innocent. So maybe this guy's the dummy, and he just is trying to.
Yes,
but that doesn't fit with like Randy's whole thing. But
no, I mean, I think it does. Is that he thinks he's being clever and tricking this woman, but she's not falling for it.
Well, we don't know. I don't even mean that. I mean, like, he's sincere. He goes,
oh, right.
I think this is Spanish. I think this is what Catholics do.
Right.
And Kathleen, you must be Irish.
Right.
Even though you're clearly not,
Yeah.
It could be someone's an idiot. It's up for you to decide. And that's art.
Right. And that's art. And then we get this last song, which Old Man on the Farm, which again, I find a little curious because to me, I think it just seems straightforward. And just like an old man who's sad.
Let's take a look. Let's see if I got let's see if I disagree with you.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's hard just to live. But it's hard because like I listen to these albums for the podcast.
Right.
So a lot of times I'm not familiar with them, and I have a hard time because I listen to it through.
Right.
I got to get better at just like listening to one track over and over.
Yeah.
But I can't get too caught up. The process needs to change. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, it's just some guy, it's age catches up with everybody.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought was curious is that, again, we have a perspective shift from third person to first person, where he's waiting for some rain to fall, he's waiting for the mail to come, blah, 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 milk the cow, slop the pig, sweeping up the chicken house. And then the last stanza, this sort of chorus, good night, ladies, sorry if I stayed so long, sorry it's been good to know you. I love the way I sing that song, which not only has a perspective shift, but then that fourth line has a sort of fourth wall break where I actually looked up, good night, ladies, sorry if I stayed too long, so long it's been good to know you. I thought maybe are those lyrics to an old folk song or something? Because then he references, I love the way I sing that song, but it's not. So I don't know, but I think it's just a nice old man who's dying.
Do you think he's dying?
I think he's saying goodnight and goodbye.
Yeah.
And he's drinking whiskey in the barn,
Not doing great. I do like that idea of like metatextually, Randy's like, thank you and goodnight on this track.
Right. This last song on the album.
It's like, I'm sorry if I overstayed my
right. It's like goodnight on the end of the White Album.
Yeah. But yeah, I also feel like it's almost How about this?
Okay.
How about this? It is a continuation thematically of the systemic poverty, but it's no matter, even if you leave Baltimore.
Right. It's bad everywhere.
It's bad everywhere. Except for this one's not so bad.
No, but
he's still drinking whiskey in a bar.
Exactly. It's he's an old man, but he's still milking the cows. He's still slopping the pigs. He's still cleaning up after the chickens. And he likes the way he sings, but what else has he got?
Yeah, I'll be damned, but that's it. Yeah. Very wistful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's
Little Criminals.
I do think it is, now that I think about it, kind of related to that. Like, it's hard everywhere.
Yeah.
It's hard everywhere if you're poor, says the man whose uncles composed for MGM. Like, that's right. He's so aware of class, but also is a rich person. It's fascinating.
That is true.
He's like truly if an NYU student wrote, I'm sorry, he's just Bo Burnham. I'm sorry. Right. Bo Burnham is the exact same problem. Anyway, but yeah, that's Little Criminals.
Yeah, cut that.
Oh, what you think Bo's gonna fight me?
No, well, maybe you want to be in Bo's next special or something,
or be in a movie he directs.
Yeah.
Well, I think he acknowledges his own privilege famously
that's the whole shtick.
Yeah, famously so, actually.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be flattered to be compared to Randy Newman. And if not,
hey Bo, we love you.
Yeah, I like him very much. Is his stuff comedy? We'll see. But
right.
But no, he's very funny and very good. So did you see people like making the flagrant accusation that he ripped off Jonathan Larson with the song Turning 30, and then
I can't entertain that.
No. Yeah, right. I was like, oh, you're right. No man has ever had a hard time with 30. Like
I watched Bo Burnham Inside on my 30th birthday because I didn't know that was gonna happen.
Ooh.
That was a trip.
I bet. The reason I've avoided Tick Tick Boom is because
you're turning 30.
I'm turning. Hey, do not tell people my age. I'm 27 for the rest of my life. My God. But I'm dealing with a similar, like, needing to write, feeling stuck, and also everyone says I look like the lead actor, and I'm like, I can't face myself in that way.
Yeah.
And also have him sing.
It's really good,
though. But it's good. Yeah, I here's my thing. I generally don't like musicals.
Right.
It looks really good. I worked on it.
Yeah.
Like, which is, my name is in the credits, and still I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's Little Criminals.
Randy Newman,
man. He's great. Out of the albums we covered so far, which is your favorite?
I think Sail Away is still going to be my favorite, but I think Good Old Boys is maybe the best.
I think I like Good Old Boys the best. It's certainly my favorite, but I think the self-titled album might be the best.
Ooh, yeah.
Because it's very good. They're all very good so far. We haven't had a lot of stinkers.
No. I mean, 12 Songs is definitely our least favorite. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You can tell an album's not the best when you forget it's there.
Right.
What do we have next?
Next is Born Again.
Ooh, what's the hot track off of that one?
It's Money That I Love.
Oh, can I tell you? This is what a fucking loser I am. Yeah. On my iPhone, you know how you can name the folders, the clumps? For all my like banking and stuff, like when Venmo and Bank of America, it's titled "It's Money That I Love."
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a Newman stan.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been talking too long.
That's an hour and a half. We talked about raccoons. We talked about short people. We talked about everything.
Maybe cut the raccoons if you gotta cut the raccoons.
I'm not going to. It's so funny. And it's only 10 minutes. It's fine. People can wait and they can scrub through it if they don't care.
Yeah.
But where can people find you, etc.?
You can find me on Twitter. It's Interrante Scott. That's INTERRANTE. You could also now... I've been talking about it since the beginning of this podcast, but now it's out. It's real. This is the greatest song I've ever heard in my entire life. On social media, that's Great Song Pod, GR8 Song Pod. Tristan was on our very first episode, and our most recent one, well, I don't know when this comes out, but our most recent one has Mitski, and she's famous, so listen to that.
I want to know the Mitski Newman overlap.
I'll have to ask what she thinks about Randy Newman. I suspect she just doesn't.
That sounds correct.
Yeah.
That sounds correct. You can find me at Tristan J. Miller 1 on Twitter. Then go to my link tree, and then you can find everything there.
It's all there. Yeah.
Well, and as they say,
good night.
It's hard just to live. Short people.